Hello chess friends and welcome to Yazad of Chess channel and welcome back to the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour finals in 2022. So we're now in the second day of this beautiful chess event and we're following now a beautiful game between Anish Giri and Ramesh Babu Praggnanandhaa. So this tournament is really spectacular. Every day we'll see, I think, great matches. For instance, yesterday it was already dynamic. Vasily So versus Magnus Carlsen, Shakir Mamedyarov versus Praggo. So today Arjun Erigaisi versus Magnus Carlsen, Shakir Mamedyarov versus Ng3 Bb4. So every day it will be quite spectacular, and we're starting now the day 2 with the beautiful gameplay by Anish Giri versus Ramesh Babu Praggnanandhaa. In my opinion, really a spectacular game in which Anish Giri tried to be really aggressive here. He tried some mortal tactics, but Praggo found, I think, here good defensive strategies. Be prepared. This was simply a double-edged game. So let's see now the game. Whatever happens in this game, it doesn't matter. Still, they have to play 3 more games, but as I said, in the first round of the day 2, in my opinion, this was so far the most dynamic game, and let's see now what happens. So d4 was played by Anish. We have knight to f6 by Praggo, c4, e6, knight to c3, bishop to b4. The Nimzo-Indian is on the board, and many times now you're searching maybe for opportunities what to do here. In my opinion, the Kmoch variation is pretty solid. We are playing f3. We're trying to break and enter with the move e4. We're trying to have a solid structure in the center of the board. Actually, what we're trying to do is to get the central pawn storm. So in the continuation of the game, we have now the move c5 because white is of course preparing the move e4, and you don't want to tolerate your opponent that he has such a dominant structure in the center of the board. So after move c5, you could of course maybe advance the pawn on d5, but here in the continuation Anish tried this line, a3, bishop to c3, and after b takes c3, we have reached now a common positional problem in white's camp. I think many times in the Nimzo-Indian, white is left with an isolated pawn, but of course white is also the beautiful bishop pair on the board, so still white is searching for opportunities for the dark square bishop and also for the light square bishop in the later stage of the game. So as I said, this is the compensation. You have the bishop pair, but you have a messed up pawn structure. So in the continuation, knight to c6, Praggo continues the pressure against the pawn on d4. We have now this normal idea with the move e4, and what you don't want to do in many occasions, you don't want to improve your opponent's pawn structure with this kind of stuff. C takes d4. If you do that, you're basically solving every positional problem of white. Now look at this. So white is controlling the center, will eventually play bishop to e3, can even, I think, play king to f2 because the king is not so endangered at f2 because black doesn't have any more the dark square bishop. So this is something, in my opinion, that you should not do. White will build a setup, bishop to d3, knight to e2, maybe even kingside castling or king to f2, but as I said, this is not the way to go for black. So that's why after move e4 d6, Praggo keeps the tension in the center of the board, is not reacting here around the square d4, knight to e2, and now with b6 here, this is the common idea, this is a normal natural idea to go after the c4 pawn. The c4 pawn is really a structural weakness, and okay, it's even hard, I think, for white to defend this position. It's even hard to defend this pawn, and many times white is leaving simply this pawn hanging. It's sort of a double-edged gambit line, which white is many times trying to do. But of course, the downside for black is when black is going for the pawn, is actually that black loses many tempi, many moves just in order to grab one pawn. Meanwhile, white is doing something. White is attacking the king side. White will eventually play knight to g3, f4, f5. Will break and enter. e5 is maybe an opportunity. So the bishop gets liberated. So this bishop is getting into the game. So okay, as I said, many times with b6 we are preparing knight to a5, bishop to a6, hitting the pawn on c4. But you see, you need 3, 4, maybe even 5 moves just in order to grab one pawn, as I said. Meanwhile, white is doing something, so that's why it's really wild line. So knight to g3, preparing f4, e5, and central breakthrough. So we have now kingside castling, bishop to e2, preparing of course also kingside castling, bishop to a6. We have now kingside castling. You see now this idea, knight to a5. Okay, it's really hard now. It's even impossible now anymore to protect the pawn on c4, but it doesn't matter because here Anish played this beautiful, brutal central line with the move f4, is now creating really wild dynamics, is threatening e5, f5, d5, whatever the position allows. I think you break and enter now in the center of the board. So we have now c takes d4, bishop to c4, now f5. This move is very important because it liberates now the dark square diagonal. pawn many times in the Nimzo-Indian defense from white's perspective. At least I faced many times the problem of the dark bishop. The dark bishop is many times blocked out by its own pawn. Many times you have the pawn on e3, which stands in the way of the development of the dark bishop. So that's why now f5 really makes sense by Anish Giri. He's trying now to get the bishop into the game and maybe sneak in with the queen somehow on h3, maybe create some dynamics, attack further the position with the knight, with the rook, maybe in rook to f3. I'm not sure which move is the best move, but I think now it's obvious that white is going to attack the king side with some beautiful piece activity. So here in the continuation we have now h6, not allowing this annoying pin by the bishop on g5. We have now bishop to c4, knight to c4, rook to b1, and now after move e5, here Praggnanandhaa is searching really for a clarification in the center of the board. He's trying now to block out the position as much as he can because he took the pawn. It was, of course, a good choice to go for the pawn, but now you have to defend this position. So that's why keeping the center blocked, keeping the center really locked is a normal defensive idea here. Here you don't want to let this position explode, especially because of this powerful doubtful bishop now that comes now very, very attractive, actively into the game. So we have now d5. This is now a solid structure that Anish Giri is doing. As I said, he's trying to maybe search for ideas. Rook to f3, rook to h3, queen to f3, queen to h3. So this is now the way to go. So in the continuation, rook to c8, supporting further the c4 knight, knight to h5, getting rid of the key defender, I think, of black makes really sense here by Anish. He's trying to get rid of the knight on f6 and then sneak in with more pieces into the attack. Although this is also weak pawn, but it's a long run to reach the endgame stage and start to push these pawns. You need 10, maybe 15, 20 moves just in order to make progress here on the queen side. As I said, meanwhile, white is very, very active here already on the king side, so that's why knight to h5 makes really sense, simply getting rid of the defender and supports further the attack of white. So in the continuation, knight to a5, and now comes the first mistake, I think, by Anish in the game. He played rook to b4, and this was really unnecessary. I'm not sure why he did this move. Okay, obviously, maybe rook to c4 is going to come and maybe rook to e4, but if you start an attack, then sometimes you should not stop your attack. You have to make further progress. With queen to f3, look at this. This is already a wild position. For instance, rook to c7 happens. You're maybe supporting somehow the 7th rank. But now look at this. Bishop to h6 is an even opportunity. It creates really some wild tactical possibilities for whites. This is also a way to go. So in my opinion, maybe Anish Giri slowed down simply the pace of the game a little bit with this move rook to b4. Maybe he was threatened by the possibility of rook to c4, but here, as I said, queen to f3, much, much better. Praggu plays now a rook to c3, attacks now the pawn on a3, and it's not allowing now the queen to sneak in on this very active square on f3. We have seen if the queen comes into the game, then it could be very, very spectacular here on the king side. So bishop to d2, attacking the rook, and now Praggu makes a really wild move. This is really brave what he's doing. A rook to d3, and from this point on, actually, the rook is getting a little bit trapped. Maybe rook to a3, taking out the rook immediately, but still, this is a weird position of the rook. The rook could be maybe trapped by some activities of white, so it was very risky what the young prodigy did here. He played now rook to d3, but now after queen to c2, look at this. Where are you going to go with your rook? Now Praggu took rook to a3, and now Anish played an unnecessary tactic. He played now knight takes g7, and I was not really sure why did he really play this game like this. He should have gone simply knight to f6. Look at this. After queen to f6, now bishop to c1 is solving now many positional problems. Actually, the rook is trapped. You're playing here rook to a1. That's the only square. We're attacking now the rook, and actually after a rook to c1 here, after queen to c1, white should be slightly better. Okay, we cannot say white is winning immediately because still of this very powerful two connected pass pawns on the queen side, but this was simply must continuation here for Anish. I'm not sure about this move. Knight to g7, he pulled off this wild tactic, but Praggu simply accepts the challenge. We have now queen to c1. Okay, you're losing maybe here a little bit the battle around the square h6, but actually everything can be defended. In the continuation, Praggu tries a rook to d3, maybe even giving up now the rook for the bishop, because then you have two minor pieces against the rook. This is a very powerful bishop. You want to get rid of your most powerful piece of your opponent. So that's why, in my opinion, rook to d3 makes really sense. We have bishop to h6, king to h7, and now bishop to g5. And you see now even if you take out the rook now, it doesn't make sense because here we will simply pick up the bishop, and now we're getting more defenders into the game. We can even hide with our king maybe here. The knight is a very powerful piece, and in the continuation of the game I think we can play a defensive move, knight to b7 and then knight to c5, simply fixing everything here on the queen side, keeping everything glued together and compact. And I'm not seeing good ways how white is going to infiltrate in this position, how white is going to get this rook into the game. So in my opinion now a much better position for black. So that's why here after king to h7, Anish tried bishop to g5, tried now to stay very active with the bishop, but look how Pragg is keeping the rook on the third rank. This is really beautiful. He's not allowing rook to f3, rook to h3. This would be then devastating if, for instance, the rook is coming into the game. So we have here rook to g8, attacking the bishop, h4. Okay, it supports the bishop now, but no rook to h3 ideas are going to happen. Even if you somehow kick away the rook from d3, rook to f3, rook to h3 wouldn't be a check anymore. So really beautiful how Pragg would play defensively here. Many of us, I think, would start to sweat here. Many of us would make mistakes here, making accuracies, blunders or something, but not Pragg. He played really good defensively here. After move h4, knight to b3, he included now more pieces into the attack. We have queen to e1, and now, as we said, now he has this central grip. The knight is really beautiful here. It's almost this game Tetris, when you have this beautiful piece that simply fits in the position. Now the knight is perfectly fine here on c5, supports also the rook on d3, and from this point on obviously it's game over here for white. So we have king to h1, a5, we have here b5, simply pushing the pawn further. We have here, after a couple of trades of pieces, knight to e4 here. Pragg takes out also a very important centralized pawn. We have queen to e3, queen to c8, rook to f3, and after queen to c2, in this position actually Anish Giri resigned. So great game, but a really unnecessary tactic by Anish Giri. Consider sometimes the option that your opponent made a mistake. If he pulls off a tactic like this, don't start to sweat immediately. It's also part of psychological problems in chess. Don't consider these moves maybe as the best moves, because you see sometimes your opponent does make a huge mistake like Anish Giri did here. Still, nothing is lost for Anish. Still, he has chances, I think in the game for sure. But so far, really unnecessary tactic against Pragg. Pragg used now his chances in the game and has now a beautiful lead, especially because of the fact that he won now the game with the black pieces against a strong opponent like Anish Giri. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot. The interesting ideas of the Nimzo-Indian for sure. If you want to see more games from this event, check out my previous game that we have analyzed. It was a beautiful game played by Magnus Carlsen against Wesley. So here's also the link of the video, and if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what to say, chess is the best, of course.